Welcome to the newest unboxing here on the Needless Things YouTube channel. Today we are looking at the Ghostbusters that were included with the deluxe release of the Ectomobile HasLab. These are supposed to be their looks from Ghostbusters 2, and I'm seeing potentially some controversy. It was lots and lots of comments on my review of the basic Ectomobile. The review of the Ecto 1A, the deluxe version from Ghostbusters 2, is up now. My review of the figures that were included with the basic version is also up. One of the comments was they didn't even get their uniform color right on these, and it'll be interesting. We'll take a look at that. So we've got 3 different trays, we've got accessories, and we've got the figures themselves. I love that they came with the slime blowers. I love the balloon and the mug and the toaster. Very cool, but we'll take a look at that stuff in a minute. We're going to take a look at the figures first. So I have already expressed dissatisfaction with the way that Hasbro has chosen to execute these figures. I'm used to G.I. Joe Classified. I'm used to Marvel Legends. So the smaller scale of these doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why Hasbro, why aren't they scaling all of their purportedly 1/12 scale lines the same? It doesn't make any sense to me. Why wouldn't you want Wolverine and Peter Venkman and Darth Vader and Duke to all be the same, to all be able to go on a shelf together? It's the same company. Like, that to me would be marketing. But I have to look at these figures as they are designed. They're not compatible with anything else. They might be the same scale as Black Series. I don't have any Black Series because I think Black Series are a bit smaller as well. So it's as I think they might have called it, movie scale, which makes whatever. And then the other issue that I have with these is in 2025, we've got figures that still have pens. Don't understand that at all. And for a good example of why that's kind of ridiculous, the figures that just came out from Skeletron, the Wolf Troopers, are penless, and those were 2021 is when that campaign went up. So I don't understand any figures that still have pens in this day and age, but they are what they are. So we're going to understand that they're smaller than I would like them to be. They have pens. Let's move past that and take a look at, for their form factor, for how Hasbro decided to make them, are they good? And I think that what I arrived at with the Lewis Tully figure is, aside from those things, yes, it is a very good figure. It's a very good 2010 action figure. Although that's not even really fair, because the portraits on these, or at least the portrait on Tully, was fantastic. I will jump into my first issue. I also don't understand how you're doing glasses like this in 2025. These lensless. Now, I don't really want glasses to be a separate piece or a removable piece. Well, I guess I do want them to be a separate piece, but not removable. This is just bizarre. This is how we did glasses on action figures in 1984. I don't understand how we're doing this in 2025. But having said that, the portrait is fantastic. The glasses do look, for what they are, they look good. Hair looks great. So this is not a 2010 portrait. And the issue that I see, and this is a movie issue, this is like Han Solo's Hoth jacket, is what color were the coveralls in Ghostbusters 2? I just watched it again. And I've watched that movie a lot. So I just watched it again. And if you were to ask me, I would say they're gray. Now, Are they gray or are they navy blue? Han Solo's parka, is it blue or is it brown? Well, do you remember the toy? Do you remember the movie? Like, so it's not, to me anyway, it's not cut and dried. I don't know, even having just watched the movie, thinking of them as having the gray coveralls, which I always have. But if you showed me concept art that showed that they're actually navy blue and they just showed up as gray on screen, or you know, most people think they're gray, but they're navy blue, I wouldn't fight back against that. So having said all that, I think the blue looks really good. Is it accurate? You're going to need somebody who is more of a Ghostbusters expert than I am to tell you that. Do they look like they're supposed to look? In my head, not really. But I like the blue better than gray. I think the blue looks really cool. And if it's wrong, and they shouldn't have done it in blue, but I like it. I like this yellow on whatever this device is right here. The thing that I love the most out of these, so we've gotten, usually toy companies get, because toy companies struggle with the Ghostbusters. There's so many little details, there's so many little things that they don't get. I've also just realized these guys don't have the hoses, but I'm going to assume they didn't have them in Ghostbusters 2. And I'll tell you right now, again, I just watched it again the other day. I didn't even look to see if there were hoses on the other coveralls. But I know they're there on the original khaki ones. Now, what color of khaki those are also seems to vary because the Lewis Tully figure is a different color from the other Plasma Series figures. But what I love, you know, they got the Venkman does not tuck his coveralls in. That's a nice touch. Would it be nice to have swappable hands so they didn't have to have the gloves on all the time? Yes, it would. Would it nice to have swappable heads? Yes, it would. It's 2025. That's what we do. Swappable hands, swappable heads. It's just a given in lines now, and it's bizarre to me that these don't have that. But if you notice, Raymond is a different torso from the other guys, and that's something that bothers me in almost every Ghostbusters line, is they just use the same torso 4 times. He is thicker than the others are. He's got a belly, which he should. And I love that they got that right. Like, that's actually a big deal to me. They're all about the same height, which was surprising to me when I looked it up, because I was curious to know. I did get the other Plasma Series figures, and I just wanted to know, because the Sigourney Weaver figure, the Dana Barrett figure, or the Zool figure, is with her hair taller than the Ghostbusters figures. And I was like, well, that's crazy. How did they make this figure so too much bigger? And it's not, because if you look it up, all the actors are like 6 foot to 6'2", and Sigourney Weaver's 6 foot. So with that hair on top of her head, she would be taller. So the figure is not wrong. And then the actor that played Gozer is very short. I can't remember what her height was, but she's very short, and that figure is much shorter. So they got that, nailed it. So that's, they look good for what they are. For the decisions that Hasbro made, they succeeded. So let's take a closer look at the other portraits. Winston, kind of severe looking, and it's not the best Ernie Hudson I've ever seen. I think the sculpt is very good. I think the darkness around the lips is odd. It's kind of throwing it off. The hair looks great, but they're not quite capturing him as well as, well, you know what? Let me go get my Plasma Series figures that I have. I don't have Egon yet, so we can't do a comparison there. But we can take a look at the other ones. Okay, so here's the 1984 Plasma Series release, and I mean, it is dead on. It looks incredible. I do like that he's got the bigger hair than he had in Ghostbusters 2, but that portrait just isn't quite getting it for me. And the rest of the figure, you can see the belts are different, but the Proton pack, same. The uniform, same. All that tooling is the same. Well, no, I take it back because this one does not have the hose on it. So at least this piece is different. But it looks like everything else is the same. Also interesting, this is the first time I have ever noticed these straps that are on the thighs of these coveralls. And I'm not saying no other company has done it. I'm just saying I haven't noticed it before. So there's a side-by-side there. I think this is clearly the superior one. Although the coveralls on these Plasma series look too light to me. They don't look totally wrong, but they look too light. The color that they used on Louis Tully, I think, is better. It's a little darker, a little browner. All right. So here is Ray, who I think they got. It's almost caricature-y. It looks really good, but it also looks a little cartoony. But it's clearly Dan Aykroyd in a way that the Winston figure is not as clearly Ernie Hudson. And then here is the 1984 Dan Aykroyd, which both are great, I think. This one is a little cartoonier, but they did a great job with both of these. And then finally, Peter Venkman. I think it's fantastic. Hair looks great. Portrait is excellent. And then 1984, different facial. I do like that they gave them different facial expressions. And it looks like all the skin tones match relatively well, so you can swap those heads if you want to. Well, if you can swap. I don't know if you can swap these heads. Who knows? But I think both the Venkmans look great. Let's see if that head maybe pops off. Yep. That head pop. Okay, well, now we've got to find out, can you swap these heads? Not that you necessarily want the 1984 heads. Oh, man, that one may not be coming off. Nope, that one's not going to pop right off. So there's something that's a little more 2025 about the newer figures, is you can pop the heads off a little more easily. So minus the pins, pretty good. Let's take a look at the accessories. So they've already got the Proton packs on. Hasbro spared no expense for tape on this project. Kind of already looked at the details of the Proton packs and the neutrino ones, and I don't love them. I'm just going to plug one in. The cord is too rigid, so it kind of makes it difficult to store them in the Ecto 1, and it just kind of sticks up here. So that's another decision that feels very like 2015. I said 2010. 2015 is probably more fair. And that may be, what was it, 2016 when these came out? It wasn't that. Was it that long ago? Let's see. Do these have dates on them? Yep, they sure do. 2020. So 5 years ago. But anyway, this feels very, regardless of that, this feels very 2015. Most things now would have separate tubes that were softer plastic that would connect into the two different pieces. So you wouldn't have, this sticking up necessarily. It just feels, it's odd. And they can hold it well. I tested this out on the Louis Tully figure. Well, and that's another problem is when you're trying to pose it, that hose resists literally everything you're trying to do, which is not great. But they do have the butterfly joints in the shoulders, so you can get a nice, relatively accurate grip and firing stance on this. They're all going to be kind of aimed to the side. You're not really going to get a, like, the arm can't go that far across, because as good as articulation is getting now, and as well as things tend to work, this is still plastic. It still has limitations. So you can get it a little better than that. I'm just not going to spend too much time with it right now. That almost is the Egon look on his face right there. The do-re Egon. The little smile that he gives that I love so much. All right. And then we've got, I'm not going to pull all these out right now because we got to move along. We've got the Proton streams, which I think look great. This is a hard plastic in the center and a softer plastic effect on the outside. And you've got a little sort of hose right here that you plug into, or rather slides over the emitter right there, and you push it all the way in so that the hard plastic part makes contact with the front of the emitter to give it kind of a base. So these seem like they're not going to sag over time. I think they look pretty great. I think it's a very well done effect. It's as long as I really need it to be. I think these look really good. I think they do a nice job with these. And then we've got, I guess somebody's going to have to lose their Proton pack. Would have been nice if I'd thought about that before I snapped everything into place. All right. So we've got the, now I don't know the terminology for the slime blasters. I am definitely, as much as I love Ghostbusters, both of the first movies, well, really everything, all the Ghostbusters stuff. I haven't read many of the comics, which I'm sure is to my detriment, but I love all the movies. I even like the 2016, the one that most people don't care for. It's not the right tone, but I think it's a really good comedy, and I enjoy it, and I've watched it several times. It wasn't, the problem with it was not the thing that most people got upset about. The problem with it was that tonally, it just didn't match up with the humor of Ghostbusters. And I would go so far as to say that as much as I do enjoy Afterlife and Frozen Kingdom, they actually have the same problem in the opposite direction. They're a little too grounded and serious. They don't quite get the humor. I mean, it's funny. Look, it's Paul Rudd's in them. But it's just, I don't know. I think that's what makes the 1984 Ghostbusters so magical, is it did hit this unique tone that really nothing else has had, where it's not like slapsticky really. It's all situational and character based. Like, Peter Venkman's a funny guy. Like, that's all it is. And they also treat the situation as serious. So I enjoyed Afterlife, and I really dig Frozen Kingdom because it felt to me like a real Ghostbusters episode. And my headcanon, as much as I do enjoy Ghostbusters 2, my headcanon is real Ghostbusters. Because it's depressing, the Ghostbusters 2. What happens? It's more likely mirror what would have happened in the real world, but it's depressing. So real Ghostbusters is my preferred headcanon. So here we've got a bunch of tampos on here, and I sure wish they could have done tampos like this on the Ecto itself, because these look good. I love this little head cushion here. Never noticed that before. No handle. Got the lights. Looks very cool. Fits on nicely. Fits on very, very well. And then the slime blowers, which apparently have way more hoses than I realized, which I'm good with. Toys with hoses, awesome. Always fun to plug stuff in. And again, they did the separate hoses on this, but couldn't do it. Couldn't do it on the Proton packs, but it's because they were just using existing tooling rather than tooling up new stuff for this. By the way, very expensive HasLab. I say very expensive. I feel like I got my money's worth. I'm happy with the product, but I also kind of wonder, with as much reused tooling as they had, I don't know if these are the proper plug-in spots for any of this. It's fine. With as much reused tooling as was here, I do have to wonder a few things couldn't have been done a little better. Wow, I never realized there were 3 different hoses connecting that thing. And I also don't know for sure if it goes over his head or just his shoulder. But for pure ease of posing the action figure, that's going over his head and his shoulder. Oh, I wonder if he's going to be able to hold this properly. So that handle, this handle right here, is very soft plastic. Be careful with that. I don't envy the toy designers for having to figure out how to make this thing, because I'll tell you, if it's scaled properly on these figures, and I believe it to be, it is much smaller than I realized it was in the movie. So I think you could probably get a little better grip on it than what I've got going on here, but I'm just going to leave it there. Same thing, you're going to have to kind of turn them to the side to get the effect. And then the slime effect is a relatively rigid, like it's got a little flexibility to it, but it's a relatively rigid plastic. Just interesting that it goes so far. It's hollow to that degree right there. So let's plug that in. And again, I think it's as long as it really can be without, some droop over time. It feels pretty sturdy. It feels like it's not going to do that droop. And I think this is exactly how he's going to look on the shelf, because I always love the slime blowers. I don't know how much sense they really make, but I just thought it was cool, a fun thing to add in, especially in 1989 when, slime has been on the part of the toy market for a long, long time, but just seems appropriate. So that's awesome. I really dig that rig, that setup. He can stand up with that big backpack on. That's great. I'll take a look at the dancing toaster. Play a little Jackie Wilson. Of course, there's no cord or anything on it because this team doesn't do cords, as we found out with the ghost traps. And I also just realized no ghost traps with these Ghostbusters. Not that they were using them at this point. Well, no, because they alternate between coveralls throughout the movie. So ghost traps would not have been unreasonable. I mean, these guys honestly probably should have been loaded out with everything. They don't have PKE meters. They don't have the goggles. This is a little bare bones, again, for the money. I love the mug. Probably could have printed that on both sides. And then the balloons for the kids. That it does fit in the mug. That's a nice touch. We actually did a parody of this commercial for a game show that I do. And I will link it in the video description if you want to go check that out. It's pretty fun. So that needs to be zoomed back out. That is the set of 4 Ghostbusters in their potentially inaccurate navy blue uniforms. You tell me in the comments if they should be navy blue or not. I still kind of feel they should be gray, but like I said, I like the blue, so I'm not too mad about it. I'm torn. Look, these look good for what they are. However, for the price point, for what a HasLab is, I think they should have tooled up new. I mean, I guess they couldn't have. I mean, the pricing is what the pricing is. But compared to other HasLabs, they should have tooled up new pinless figures. It is reasonable to think alternate hands and alternate portraits could be expected, just judging by modern action figure standards. Traps, or a trap, a PKE meter, a set of goggles. You know, I don't need one for all of them, but this feels a little lackluster to me. Just compared to other things that have come out in the past few years, I think they could have done better. However, I like this. It's going on the shelf. I dig it. I'm happy with it, but I think it could have and should have been more. So there you go. You know, your mileage will vary, and I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments what you think about it. But mostly, I want to hear about these coveralls. I want to hear experts' opinions about what the color the coveralls should be. But also, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends about Needless Things. And until next time, buy what you like.
Smash that like button if you like Needless Things.